Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy.
These are the weeks that were, are, and shall be. You might have guessed that the opening clip was in Nepal, whence I have returned from a month-long vacation with family and visiting family over there and having just a wonderful time. In fact, I think I'll start this video out by sharing some of the views that I was privileged to see while in Nepal, and then when I come back from that, I will talk about what I've been doing on the channel, some publishing news, some SPFBO news, stuff going on the channel, lots of exciting reads, so stay tuned. And now that we're back from Nepal, let's talk about what I've been up to on the channel. Although I will note that in many of those pictures, you would have seen the Himalayas, but because the summer is the monsoon, the clouds are covering the very biggest white-peaked mountains, and a lot of those shots, unfortunately, but if you want to see those, go in the wintertime. It's really quite breathtaking. But anyway, what have I been up to on the channel since the last episode of the weeks that were? Well, I had a wonderful discussion with Mary from Mary Reads to Live on why teach fantasy. It was really a very moving discussion, and I had a great time talking with Mary about her teaching of fantasy at the high school level and my teaching of fantasy at the college level, and what we have both experienced in that capacity, how we have seen fantasy literature be so transformative for our students. It was really a wonderful discussion, and I encourage you to check it out. Also on the channel, I've finished up Monster with Murphy, and Patrick also joined us in our very last discussion, our wrap-up discussion. But we had a couple of the discussions with Murphy that were featured here, and of course the other ones are featured on her channel, and just had a blast. Another great time with another manga, and I'm looking forward to the next manga that I'll be reading with Murphy, which is To Your Eternity, and we'll be starting that fairly soon. And what else? I had an episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy with Alex from Books with Banks, and had a great time talking not just Malazan, but a lot of the stuff that he's doing on his channel and his reading journey and all sorts of wonderful stuff. So check out Alex's channel, really thoughtful, fun guy. Most recently, he's been doing a series of videos on a sort of booktube survivor thing, where he pitted various booktubers that you probably know and love against other booktubers in like the Survivor show. I actually never watched Survivor, so I'm not entirely sure how that works, but it sounds pretty Machiavellian, so check that out. Also, I did a video on SPFBO. I am, of course, a judge for SPFBO 9 this year, and have been reading a lot of self-published fantasy, and have decided on actually my first semi-finalist. Not my finalist, my first semi-finalist, which was a wonderful read, A Gamble of Gods. I talk about that in the video. And I also talk about 5 of the wonderful books that are not going on to be semi-finalists. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't lots of folks who would love those books, and that's why I talked about those 5 books. The fact is, look, people put in a lot of time and effort. They put their hearts into these books. and there's a lot to be loved there. And so I just hope that people will pick up all the books that have entered SPFBO this year, and doing my best to give them a little bit of attention, even if they are not the ones moving on to the semifinalist stage. And I'll be continuing to make some more videos, 4 more, in which I will feature other books that aren't going to be semifinalists and 1 semifinalist in each. So I'm going to have 5. My plan is to have 5 semifinalists, and among those I have to pick my 1 finalist. So that is the task that I have at hand, and I do believe that my next SPFBO video will be in about a week or so. I've been pondering which book to make my next semifinalist, and I think I have arrived at the answer to that, but I will be sure before I make that video. And I also read A Drowned Kingdom by my excellent friend P.L. Stewart, a wonderful human being and a great author. I had a really grand time reading A Drowned Kingdom. It's the first book in the Drowned Kingdom saga, a projected 7-book series. The first 3 books are out. Book 4 is coming out next year. He's going to put out 1 a year, and he's got the whole thing really planned out really well. So, but the first book was great. I really enjoyed myself. It reminded me a lot of classical epics, especially the Aeneid. I love the tone that P.L. Stewart has achieved there. It has that epic fantasy vibe that I crave, and I just had a great time reading the story, getting to know the main character, who is a bit of an unlikable narrator. The protagonist is the narrator. It's first person, and in many ways not a person I really like very much, but also representative in many ways of the culture that he's coming from, and a lot of his assumptions, a lot of his worldview is coming from that. And he shows some interesting self-awareness. So I was very fascinated, actually. And in moments, I found myself even rooting for this character, which is something to pull off, to deliver a character of such complexity that you can dislike the character for certain qualities, but like the character for other qualities. So P.L. Stewart did a great job with that. Also, I did my cover reveal for Return to Edan, the 3rd book in my Edan Trilogy. I cannot tell you how excited I am for people to read this 3rd book. I don't think I've been secret about the fact that the 3rd book is my personal favorite. I will be very keen to see what others make of it. It is in many ways, I think, the most different of the 3, the one where I take the most risks, perhaps. And it's also, for me, the most emotionally impactful of the trilogy. But that's me, and it'll be interesting to see what readers think of it. It is coming out on September 21, and in fact, the ebook has been available for pre-order for a little while already, and it may be the case that as you're watching this video, that the paperback, will be available for pre-order. If not, I'm pretty sure very soon after today. So yeah, it's not quite there yet, but it could be there any minute now. So if you're interested in pre-ordering, maybe in the next couple days, check on Amazon for that to become live, the pre-order for the paperback of Return to Edan. I will be celebrating, as I did last time with the release of The Prophet of Edan. I'll be celebrating with some kind of enticement, some sale or other, perhaps. I haven't quite figured out what I'm doing yet, but last time what I did was I made the ebook version of The Way of Edan free for 5 days before the release of The Prophet of Edan. And that was a lot of fun, actually. It got a lot of new readers into the series that way. So yeah, I'm hoping to get some new eyes on those books, and I'm just very, very excited for the 3rd book. I did it. I put out a trilogy in 1 year, and I'm pretty darn excited about it. Now, of course, I have been working on that, as you probably all know, for the last 18 plus years, and it is definitely a labor of love, something that I have poured myself into. And so it's really just gratifying to have people react to the story. And I thank everybody who has purchased, read, reviewed any of the books in the trilogy thus far. I'm just incredibly grateful. The feedback really just, for me, brings the whole thing alive. And I'm so happy to be where I am in terms of the Edan Trilogy. And what else is going on here? Well, yeah, there's a lot I've already mentioned, but hey, I'm reading stuff. And while I was in Nepal, I read some great stuff. I'm continuing to read the SPFBO stuff, but I read a lot of SPFBO while I was there. I've also finished 3 books in the Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobb, and I'm very excited to be taking on the 4th. I'll be doing this in September at some point, Blood of Dragons, but I did finish the first 3. It's a 4-book series. Most of the other installments in the realm of the Elderlings are trilogies. However, Rainwild's Chronicles is a tetralogy. So yes, I did finish the first 3, and a lot of folks are less excited about Rainwilds than they are about other parts of the realm of the Elderlings. So I did have slightly lower expectations when it came to Rainwild's Chronicles. However, maybe that helped me, I don't know, but I've actually enjoyed myself. The first book, I will say, did drag somewhat for me. And that would be Dragon... what is it called? Dragon Keeper. Dragon Keeper. Dragon Keeper was a bit of a slow burn. And I did find myself kind of liking these characters, but not being entirely sure yet. A lot of them were new characters. Most of them were new characters. And I wouldn't call it YA. Actually, I've heard it called YA. I personally would not describe it as YA, although a lot of the characters are teenaged. But it has the usual Robin Hobb brilliance, but there were certain things that just kind of held me back a little bit from fully enjoying. I found myself a little impatient with the teenage drama parts of it, and I also did find that there was a copious use of kind of flashback sort of thing where we have a scene being set and then we have a character reflecting on an earlier thing, and we're sort of tugged out of the present scene and into a past scene, which sort of explains the present scene a little bit. That happens a little, I mean, that's a technique that authors use all the time. It happens a little too often in Rainwild's Chronicles for my taste. And another thing I think that maybe was something the publisher pushed a bit, but there was a lot in the first 3 books of reminding the reader of what happened in the previous books. A little too much of that, I felt. But of course, keeping in mind that the people who originally were reading this as the books were coming out had to wait quite a while. So that probably is what was going on there. But I found myself getting a little impatient with the explanations of stuff that already happened, and I didn't feel like I needed to be reminded all that often. But then I was reading them in fairly quick succession. But those little, belly aching things aside, I really loved this tetralogy so far. I have actually found myself more and more identifying with the characters, loving the world that we are seeing, a part of the world that we hadn't previously seen in Realm of the Elderlings. So quite impressed with what Hobb was doing there, and loving the glimpses into the magic of this world that I feel like I'm getting to know more and more and more. And there are lots of links to the other sections of Realm of the Elderlings that are opening the story up for me in many ways. So I anticipate that I'm going to love Blood of Dragons. It hasn't been, Rainwild's has not been as emotionally impactful as Tawny Man. Tawny Man had me in tears multiple times. I've enjoyed Rainwild's, but it hasn't been so emotionally impactful for me yet. Who knows what Blood of Dragons will do to me. But it's Hobb, and I trust it's going to be brilliant. Oh, and I wanted to mention, too, that I am, of course, reading the Rainwild Chronicles and the Realm of the Elderlings along with Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews. And there's a very good chance that when this video comes out, I will have discussed some of the Rainwild Chronicles with Mike on his Talk About Nothing series, which I will be on, or I will have been on when you see this video. It's going to be a Friday evening, the previous to this video coming out on Saturday. So check out that episode of Talk About Nothing with Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about Rainwild's Chronicles and among other things. And now, next, I am reading, probably going to pick up Book of the New Sun, the 4th part, Citadel of the Autarch. And I am so excited to finally finish Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. This has been held up by many as one of the most brilliant series in speculative fiction. And while I have not found myself deeply identifying with the characters or even with the world necessarily, it has been a fascinating journey. There's a lot of questions I still have, a lot of unknowns, and I think that's deliberate on Gene Wolfe's part. It's been fascinating, though, in the sense that I've enjoyed myself trying to figure out what is going on. So if you're the type of reader who is fine with uncertainty and having to guess a lot of the time, then you might enjoy Book of the New Sun. But if you don't like that sort of thing, you'll be exasperated probably a lot. So just a fair warning if you're thinking about reading Book of the New Sun. But it's an interesting read. I have to finish the fourth part before I fully make up my mind about the whole thing. But I'm glad that I'm reading it. I will say that. I'm also going to be finishing up the Books of Babel. I have one book left in that. And, by the way, I forgot to mention, I'll be talking with Matt over from Matt on Books and Paul Williams about the Citadel of the Autarch. That is a discussion series that I've been involved in and enjoying very much with those two wonderful people. And I am doing the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft with another great group of people, including Alan and Grace and Ben and Johan from Library of a Viking. And I have loved the first three books. The third book had its challenges for me, not in a bad way, in a good way, for the most part. And I'm very curious to see where Bancroft takes the whole thing in the Fall of Babel, which is apparently a fairly divisive book in the sense that some people love it and some people don't. Even people who loved the first three, some of them are not as excited about the fourth book. And I'm very curious to see what exactly it is that some people love and others don't. But I have loved Bancroft's writing thus far, and I'm excited to finish that series. I need to finish Jade War. I'm actually 2/3 of the way or so through this. I enjoyed Jade City. I stopped reading Jade War because some of the collaborators, or one of the collaborators I was working with, had a big life event going on, and a really wonderful one. But we sort of got stalled in our discussions on that. So I put it down when I was 2/3 of the way through, thinking, okay, I have so many other books to read. But it's not a DNF or anything like that. It was just that I thought, okay, let me get to this other buddy read that I need to do as long as we're waiting for this. So I'm just going to resume reading Jade War at some point in probably September, hopefully finish it up, and then get on to Jade Legacy so I can have that trilogy finished. And I have been enjoying it very much for the most part. So also, definitely in September, I'm going to be reading War Host of Vastmark, which is the third book in The Wars of Light and Shadow by Johnny Wirtz. Now, I'm not making a mistake holding this up. This is Ships of Merrier, but it's also in the hardcover edition. It includes War Host of Vastmark. I think for Johnny Wirtz, they actually are one story. So the 11-book series is really a 10-book series. But when it's published in the paperback form, it's 11 books. Hardcover, I guess we're talking 10 book, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to talk to Johnny Wirtz about that. But whatever you want to call it, book 2 or 3 or whatever, I am finishing War Host of Vastmark in September. I'm going to be talking with A.P. Canavan and Joanna, who are my reading buddies for this series, Wars of Light and Shadow, which has been brilliant so far. And I'm very much thinking that this could be another favorite epic fantasy series of all time. I mean, so far from what I've seen, it is on the scale of Malazan, which is saying a lot coming from me. And I am going to continue with my read of The Sandman, which I'm reading along with Varsha from Reading by the Rainy Mountain. And I really loved the first 8 issues of The Sandman. And we're going to continue with the next 8 in our next discussion, which I will be hosting. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what weirdness Neil Gaiman gets up to in The Sandman. The first discussion was on Varsha's channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain, if you want to check that out. It was a lot of fun for me. I feel like it's long overdue for me to read The Sandman. It is one of Gaiman's sort of best known, if not his best known work. So I felt like a little bit of a fake Neil Gaiman fan, having loved American Gods and The Ocean at the End of the Lane particularly, but not having read The Sandman. So I'm rectifying that. I'm basically going to be spending the rest of my life rectifying all the gaps in my fantasy reading, which is a good problem to have. I think we can all agree. So that's all that I'm up to for now. Stay tuned for more videos on these books and publishing stuff and more fun around here on BookTube. All right, until next time.